Good morning or afternoon. Today's lesson is going to be on perpendicular lines. We've kind of already talked about perpendicular lines, but there are some things you need to know when you have that perpendicular line with parallel lines and the perpendicular line is your transversal. The first thing we need to know is that if two intersecting lines form a linear pair of supplementary angles, which means they add up to 180, then the lines are perpendicular. So that's your definition. So it says, if angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, then they are perpendicular, and that upside down T is the symbol for perpendicular. What it also means is that this line G is perpendicular to F. So if 1 and 2 are congruent, it must mean that they are both 90 degrees, therefore they are perpendicular. Another rule we have to follow that if a transversal is perpendicular to one of two parallel lines, then it is perpendicular to the other parallel line. Meaning, if this transversal T is perpendicular to R, which is parallel to P, okay, so these are your parallel lines, then it must be perpendicular to P as well. So if T is perpendicular to R, right here is given, then T is perpendicular to P. In a plane, if two lines are perpendicular to the same line, then two lines are parallel. So here I give you that P is both perpendicular to M and N, which would in turn say that M is parallel to N. So we can say if M is perpendicular to P, which is shown by the right angle, and N is perpendicular to P, again shown by the right angle, then you can say M is parallel to N. So these are your rules we're going to talk about today and do some examples with. The first one is, what is the measure of angle 1? Here in your diagram, you have that you have one parallel or perpendicular line. It says the transversal, we'll call it T, is perpendicular to C. But if you think back to your second rule we talked about, it says if a transversal is perpendicular to one of the parallel lines, then it is perpendicular to the other, which means that this transversal T is also perpendicular to B and A. Okay, so think back to the first one. If two intersecting lines form a linear pair of supplementary angles, then the lines are perpendicular. So if this is 90, this one has to be 90 as well. So the measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees. And the reason behind that is if a transversal is perpendicular to one of the parallel lines, then it is perpendicular to the others. So here's a few more. It says, what lines, if any, can be determined parallel? Explain your reasoning. Okay, so we don't know if they're parallel right now. The only thing we know is that we have a right angle here and we have a right angle here. Okay, so we can also say that this is a right angle because they're vertical. Now, if you think back to the third rule we talked about, it says in a plane, if two lines are perpendicular to the same line, which means these two are perpendicular to J, then the two lines are parallel. So we can say G is parallel to H. Can we say J is parallel to K? And we can't because it would have to be line G that was perpendicular to both. And we don't have anything right here to tell us. We cannot assume, it's only to tell because we do not know if they are parallel. So only G is parallel to H. We could also solve for X and Y. In example 1, I ask you to solve for both. So here what you would do is you would take each of these values and set it equal to 90. And the only reason because of that, you have vertical angles here, which means that's 90. You have parallel lines, which means since this one is 90, this one's 90. Okay? If a transversal is perpendicular to one of two parallel to the other. Okay? So you're going to take each of these angles and set it equal to 90. So if you subtract 25 from 90, X is 65. And if you do Y minus 18 equals 90, add 18, Y is 108. Take a second and try the second one. If you want to pause the video, you can. All right, since you have parallel lines, you have one line on the transversal that's perpendicular, which means this one's perpendicular as well, which means you can take each of these and set it equal to 90. In the first one, you would divide by 3, so X is 30. And the second one, you would add 10. So you have 5Y is equal to 100. When you divide by 5, Y equals 20. In this problem, if you notice, we have, again, parallel lines, one line perpendicular, which means the second line is perpendicular. But we also have X and Y. This is a problem where we have to use a system of equations. Each of these is going to be set equal to 90. So we have to first figure out what are our equations we're going to be using. So remember, we want X and Y on one side, and then you would subtract 83 on this side. So you have 90 minus 83, which gives you 7. So one of your equations is 5x plus 3y is equal to 7. Over here, you would subtract 113. So you have 90 minus 113, and that gives you negative 23. So your second equation is 3x minus 5y equals negative 23. We need to multiply one of these equations, or both actually. I'm going to multiply the top one by 5 and the bottom by 3 in order to get a number that will cancel. I'm trying to cancel out my y's. So 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 3 is 15. And 5 times 7 is 35. 3 times 3 is 9. Sorry about that. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. And 3 times negative 23 is negative 69. Okay, so here these will cancel, and you have 25 plus 9, and that gives you 34x, and then you have negative 69 plus 35, which gives you negative 34. So x is negative 1. And then you would take this and substitute it back into one of your equations. And solve. So 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. So you would add 5, and you get 12. So 3y equals 12. When you divide by 3, y equals 4. So your answer would be negative 1, 4. Right now you need a compass and a protractor. What we're going to be doing is constructing a perpendicular bisector through the given line AB, here's AB, and we're going to label the new line CD. Now, what I want you to do is take the pointy part of your compass and put it right here on A. Stretch your compass out about 3/4 of the way. What I want you to do then is draw a half arc or circle. Keep that same distance, put your pointer now on B and do the same thing. Draw your half circle here. If you notice, mine's a little off because I'm not using a compass. You have 2 points. If you take your straight edge and connect those points, you just made a perpendicular bisector, which means you drew a line that will cut that given line in a 90-degree angle and directly in half. I hope this works. Your homework is number 56 through 61. You will be constructing, so please make sure you keep your compass out. If you are using one of mine, use one. You do those problems first. Okay, number 61 is a construction. So good luck.